Back like a bad habit, but better than you've ever had it. You are rocking with the Friday Morning A Show. It's the All Out 2023 preview right here. It's going to say on twitch.tv/wrestlingbrain. It isn't. It's on our fledgling YouTube channel. Is anyone here? Is anyone watching this? And if you are, you're in for a treat because it's not just me you're joined by. Nay. You get, as always, the host of Monday Night Program. Andrew C. Slack is with me. Slack, how are you doing today?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
And a very, very special guest joins us, Kate Hensler. Of course, you know her from the Mark Order podcast, from Fightful News. And really, let's put it this way, Kate, because this is maybe the hardest thing to be on earth right now, of which you are. This is maybe the hardest thing to be. You are a good presence on Twitter. You are somebody who is a good Twitter follow, which I would say about almost nobody anymore. Thank you so much for joining us, Kate. How are you doing today?
Oh my gosh. Well, that is about the highest honor that I think someone can get, to be a good Twitter follow. So I'm trying out there, man. I'm trying, but I don't know why you're lying to your people, but I'll take it.
Well, maybe it's barely even a compliment because we're in the coal mines over there now. I mean, simply by not being the most negative, strange person imaginable, you're already in a certain echelon. It's unbelievable.
Like, it's wrestling, guys. Let's calm down. It's wrestling.
For real. Slack, it's a weird week in wrestling. I said on last night's stream that, like, I'm sad about AEW for the first time, I think, since following it. Like, my mood feels affected in this, like, bizarre gray zone of what could have been this very fun 1-2 punch of All In, you know, all the history surrounding that. And then All Out a week after. I was very clear on the preview show. I didn't mind the back-to-back pay-per-view weeks. Boy, has that aged like milk. But I thought there could be some fun booking interplay there. Where do we find you mood-wise on this week as we head into All Out? And give me a small state of AEW.
Yeah, it's kind of bumming me out. I mean, I'm a huge apologist for AEW in general. I think that's known to anybody who follows us. But you know, I'm going to the show Sunday. It's right. It's something I've been at all outs. You know, in the history of the company, and it was the big show, and now it kind of feels like we're scrambling to put a card together. I mean, I think the bigger story too is like what's going on with Punk again, and how do they fix that, or is it going to get fixed? I don't know. I think coming out of All In being such a success, it's a bummer that we're not talking about that anymore, and it's only been 4 days. So that's what. Yeah, I mean, I would have hoped for this to go a little bit better, but I think again, like you said last night on your show, they kind of made this mess themselves a little bit. So yeah.
And Kate, how about you? Are you feeling any more sunshiny about this All Out week than we are? Or are you sort of feeling a general malaise too?
Somewhere in between, I think. There's a couple things that I'm really excited about. Like, if you put Takeshita versus Kenny Omega on a card, I can't say I'm not excited for that card, right? And I kind of do like where some of the things are going. Like, Miro versus Hobbs hasn't had a lot of build, but I'm excited to see that match. So my bigger complaint about it is that a couple of things. One, it kind of feels like a winter is coming, or like more one of those free specials that is like a great episode of free TV than it does a pay-per-view. I wish they could have kind of, from a financial standpoint, I get to reimburse. I'm a lucky duck. But they, like, if they could have bundled, I know Tony Khan addressed it in his press conference that wasn't an option with the providers, but it kind of feels like you should have done both for $75 instead of asking people to double down. And the other piece of it is, I feel like the only time AEW tends to run into trouble is when we do have these events on top of each other. Like when you have Blood and Guts and Forbidden Door and something all back to back, like when they're building to so many things is when they do kind of tend to drop the ball. I think we even saw that with Forbidden Door. The pay-per-view before that wasn't very strong because they were leading to all these other stories with another promotion. So that becomes very tricky. So my bigger thing with that is they are announcing more pay-per-views over and over, right? We're going to get Wrestle Dream, which I'm very excited about because I'm a New Japan nerd. But it does feel like they book themselves into trouble when they book so many things kind of on top of each other. I think everybody is going to say that it's a disappointing card. And then I think everybody's going to see a bunch of really great matches. Will it be worth the money? Will it be worth the like wrestling fatigue of back to back? I don't know. But I will also say it is a little suspicious to me that at their biggest show ever, we got zero surprises, like as far as people showing up outside of Mercedes looking down, right? But I'm wondering if maybe there's something in the wings on that front, because let's not forget, Punk and Adam Cole showing up at All Out was kind of like the coolest thing ever, right? So I'm wondering if there's something waiting in the wings on that. everybody thinks that I'm at Fightful, I secretly know things. I don't. I'm just wondering if maybe that's how they make it feel like there's some bang for your buck. Like if that's where we kind of get the punched up pay-per-view feel.
Hey, it's funny. I actually hadn't considered this. Like when they do get busier, when they don't have the breathing room to maybe problem solve, is where they run into issues. That's actually really consistent with them. And that's a great point made by you. Maybe there is this they're taking on too much, especially, Fulham FC, all these other real sports that I don't follow. And then you're right, it doesn't look like we're going away from that direction at all. Wrestle Dream is a month from now. Like you, big New Japan nerd, I will be in attendance here in the Pacific Northwest. Seattle's only a 2.5 hour drive for me, so easy peasy. But yeah, this is going to need some sort of addressing, because obviously the pace isn't going to be letting go anytime soon. I think that's a really savvy pickup. And I do agree with you that match for match, when you go through this card, there's good wrestling all over it. Like that is and in some ways that is the promise of AEW, is that they are the North American Work Rate Federation. I don't even know if that's really true anymore. They almost feel like the drama production. I'm not really sure what their identity is right now, but Slack, let's start here with maybe everybody's most maybe there's two that people are battling for, but let's get into the preview, starting with Konosuke Takeshita, now managed by Don Callis, taking on Kenny Omega. I mean, this is like an on-roster dream match, right? If you can pair up any two people in the company, these are two that are sort of likely for you to pair up. Are you like, is this, I know this probably isn't enough to get you fully juiced for the card, but as a live attendee going this Sunday, what does knowing that you have this match do for you?
Yeah, I think I will preface this by saying, like, I will pay for every AEW show. I don't care. I'm going to pay for it. I don't care if it looks bad or whatever. I'm always going to be in. I really want this company to continue to succeed. And I'm very pumped about this match. I love Takeshita. I think I loved him the minute I saw him over here. And then I'm watching old DDT stuff. I'm just like, this guy is incredible. And to see him get to this point now where he's not just doing the Rampage banger of the week, he's actually kind of not wrestled as much lately. He's been in multi-mans almost exclusively. If you give them, oh man, I really hope they get 25 minutes, maybe more. If you get in that realm with Kenny, and I think Kenny really wants to make Takeshita a made man, so to speak, and put him firmly in the top of the AEW card in the main event scene, whatever you want to call it. I think that's his goal. I'm extremely fired up for this. I think they can make magic together. I think it's going to be something we'll be talking about for a very long time.
Hey, it was floated in the Wrestling Brain Discord earlier today, something I hadn't even really considered, that Takeshita would be a smart person to have kick out from the One-Winged Angel. Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think it's on the table at all in this match? It hit my ears as something I hadn't even really considered.
I'm sure it's been discussed.
Oh, sorry, that was for Kate Slack.
Sorry, Kate.
It's all good. It's all good. You know your Discord better than I do, so I feel like it would be a huge deal, and it would be an awesome rub to give to Takeshita, but I feel like it has to happen almost at a more pivotal point in a bigger story.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a weird thing because Kenny was the first person to kick out of the One-Winged Angel, right? So I'm wondering if that actually happens whenever they do have the third match with Will Ospreay, maybe at Wrestle Kingdom, to complete that trilogy. Maybe that happens because we've also got him using the Tiger Driver over there, or the Stormbreaker. So I'm wondering if that's where that happens, but I wouldn't be mad about it. I think that would be a really cool thing for Takeshita. I think in-ring wise, this has got to be your match of the night. Anytime I see Takeshita on his own and in multi-man matches, but when he has the room to really showcase what he can do, blows my mind. The only oh my gosh, what are those called? Battle of the Belts match that I ever actually kind of really cared about, because they never do anything with these, was Takeshita versus Claudio, because I just thought that was one of the best in-ring things they've ever put on television. It was brilliant. So
that's our producer's favorite television match in AEW history.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. That's the only thing from Battle of the Belts that I've ever gone back and watched, to be honest. So it's really, really great. And I always say about Takeshita, I think there's so many guys that are sneaky quick for how big they are. I almost feel like Takeshita is sneaky big for how he moves. It always strikes me later that he's such a bigger dude than a lot of the guys that he's up against. And you almost don't realize it until you have those standoff moments, because he just doesn't move like a big guy at all. His German suplex is up there with Chad Gables and whoever else in the game. He's just fantastic. So I think this is going to be incredible. I hope this is something that we get to see run back a couple times. Like Kenny and Takeshita should not be a one-off, and Don Callis being the linchpin has been great. That promo on Wednesday where he was just like, Kenny has had 900 surgeries and here's how you should attack them all. I was sold on that match immediately. So very much looking forward to this. I guess Kenny goes over here to get his win back over to Takeshita, because I think we're not done with this story.
Slack, give me a pick. Where are you on that? Do you agree with Kate that Kenny does pick up the win here? It's sort of seems like a good time to sort of surround Kenny, make him a feature in AEW in a very big, meaningful way. In the same breath, he's shown that he really doesn't care about being pinned lately. And like, where do you see this? Is this the moment to give Takeshita his biggest win, or to reestablish Kenny and maybe continue their feud?
Yeah, I just don't have a good sense of what's next in this story, which is interesting. Like, I'm really bad at predicting things. So my first gut instinct was to say that Kenny's going to lose, because I don't know how they go to a second round. I feel like this could be their own in-house Ospreay Omega type thing, where there's going to be at least a couple more. They can tell a story over multiple matches. So I guess I don't know. I mean, he has been losing a lot lately. I feel like he's building towards something, and maybe it's not time for him to win yet, but I'm more than happy to be wrong. But I guess my gut says Takeshita wins. That's just where I'm at, but doesn't mean it's the right choice, obviously.
Yeah, it's interesting because I almost feel like it's a discussion about what you want to do with the Callis family more than this feud to some degree, where if they're going to be the Kenny Omega Slayers, I think that involves some slaying of Kenny Omega with him involved. In the same breath, I am actually going to pick Kenny Omega for more just meta reasons. I think this show could use a big, elite, top of the card win over a bad guy. Like, I think that is almost enough wherever they were going with it. And I think there's enough meat on that bone that you can return to it whenever. So I am actually going to go Kenny, even though I suspect at one point there's a very serious discussion about having Takeshita win in this spot, I suspect, but I'm not sure the time is now. Let's move on to the TBS championship. It's Chris Statlander, favorite of the channel, taking on Ruby Soho. It's been I shouldn't say there's been build towards this. I don't feel like this giant amount of electricity between Chris Statlander and Ruby Soho, which I would really like for Chris Statlander's title reign and for her to have these deeply meaningful matches. Because I think even in last night's 6-woman match, it's like at the snap of a finger, she can command and like, oh yeah, I am main character here. Like it's really laid right there. That said, I think there's an opportunity here for a good match to play out. Where's your anticipation level? And give me a pick on this one, Slack.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris is probably going to win. I don't see her ready to give up the title yet. But I mean, there's a story being told with the Outcasts and their potential split. Tony's kind of got this new character going, which I think is great. Saraya's champion now, and her and Tony are at odds. Ruby's doing her thing. I guess I wouldn't be shocked if Ruby won, but if you remember back before Chris got hurt, Ruby had a win over her in front of a crowd that was not happy about it, like really vocally unhappy about a face Ruby Soho beating a face Chris Statlander, who was really on the rise at that point. So this feels like an opportunity for Chris to kind of right that wrong, so to speak. No offense to Ruby Soho. But that's where I'm at with this one. Might see some shenanigans. Chris has aligned herself too with Willow lately, who I really wish was on the card. But that's kind of what I'm seeing. I think Chris wins, and the Outcasts kind of dissolve a little bit more potentially. That's kind of where I'm at with this one.
It just occurred to me that Willow versus Chris Statlander would tear our chat apart.
Yes.
I think that would be like the most divisive who's choosing to win we might have.
Ugh.
Kate, is there any chance Ruby picks up the win here? Or like Slack, do you sort of think this is a Chris Statlander title defense righting a wrong?
I do think this is a Chris Statlander title defense, and I think you're probably going to see the Outcast come into play. I am so into Forlorn Starlet, Tony Storm. It cracks me up. I absolutely adore this character. Saraya winning the title, Tony Storm not having it. I think maybe she can't bear the thought of Ruby Soho also having a title and her being left with no golds when she's the star. So I think maybe all that kind of comes into play here. The build has been a little weird because we were getting these collision tag programs and then suddenly Ruby kind of enters the picture. But to your point, there's a really, really great opportunity on Collision that we haven't seen Rampage or Collision at the time of this recording. So to be able to have Ruby Soho say, I remember when I was like Miss Nice Gal, just like you. And what did the crowd do when I was? And we put on one of the best women's matches that this company's ever done. They booed me. And so now you get this version of me and I'm an asshole. And here you go. Like a very, very, very simple promo, which I think Ruby's actually really good at in those situations, could really make this feel like a program that deserves to be on this card and a big deal that we should be invested in. Would love to see it. I think the match is going to be great. I am team Chris Statlander all the way. I think she retains here, but they also got to stop giving Ruby stuff to not win. Like, she doesn't win the Owen. She doesn't win any of her title shots. She's finally got a bunch of TV time with this Outcast angle, which I'm so happy about, but they've got to get her some meaningful wins sooner than later.
Yeah, it feels like she hasn't been positioned enough, is almost maybe, as you two are speaking, what I'm realizing that Chris feels they're putting not enough effort into her, but she does feel more established, at least to me, whereas Ruby feels like 3 of 3 within the Outcasts. So yeah, there's stuff to play out there. I don't want this in this match because we're not getting enough of Chris Statlander wrestling, but I say lots of times on the show, I would like champions. Mox versus Commander on Wednesday would have been a really good example of this. Like, really good fighters on the roster are allowed to beat lower card people easier. And if we were seeing more of Chris Statlander, I actually think this would be a great opportunity for just go out there, wail on Ruby Soho, get a win. 5 minutes, I'm still the champion. Who's up next? Like, I think Chris Statlander is somebody you can build around that, but not in a Jade Cargill way where it feels like maybe you're hiding some things in the quickness. It's like, okay, who can push Chris Statlander to this point where we're going to get these longer matches? I don't think that they're going to do that there, but this is the sort of matchup that I think that they should explore that sort of thing with in general. We're really staunchly behind this one person for now. But yeah, I see no reason to take it off Chris Statlander here. I think very much like you laid out nicely, Kate, it's probably more of a Tony Ruby setup also in service here.
Yeah, and I think you don't want to go too much of the dominant route when we don't have a women's title match set up. So this is the only one on the card once again, which is, for me, very frustrating, especially I do cover and watch ROH, so I've seen what Athena's done, and let me tell you, there is something there waiting to get pulled up to the main roster here that's going to be fantastic what they do. So I feel like you almost can't, it's the same complaint I have of what they did at Wembley, which is they booked for a moment there instead of a reign, which I think would be less problematic if you had other matches on the card because you'd have some diversity in the stories you're telling. Chris kind of feels like should be almost in that Rhea Ripley category, but you can't have like these 5-minute matches when you're not presenting anything else in the women's division. So I agree with you, though. She should feel extremely dominant in her presentation for sure.
And I think that's absolutely right. And a reason you couldn't do it here, just as an example of going forward, this sort of gap. But I totally agree. If this is the only showing for a women's title match on the card, again, we haven't seen Rampage, we haven't seen Collision. I don't want to dump on anything too hard yet. I don't know what the final card is going to be. For all I know, we're going to do this show in 48 hours from now. It's completely irrelevant to what the show ends up being.
They might not know at this point, man.
Yeah, also that. Kate, I'll bounce it right back here to you because you had mentioned this match earlier on in the show. We had a small setup with them, sort of, I think, to let the crowd at Wembley know, hey, this thing's getting started. Get in here for the FTW match and the ROH title matches. But Miro and Powerhouse Hobbs have a confrontation there. Obviously, we haven't had a lot of build towards this one besides that segment, but this is a good old-fashioned Hoss battle. Like, you name this as something, there's something there. Can you talk us into why this is an appealing match to you and maybe what a prediction would be?
So the Wembley segment was not the best, but the Collision before where Miro said, I don't have a god anymore, but you do because you pray to me now. I'm sold. I'm buying the pay-per-view off of that one line. Put it on a t-shirt. What are we doing? I have no god, but you do because you pray to me now is a pretty damn good promo line. I'll take it. This one, I really feel like it could go either way. I kind of am tempted to lean in the side of Hobbs wins and Miro just loses his freaking mind about it. Like, I think there's a really, really fun thing to do because Miro is so intimidating anyway. To have a pissed off Miro running around, a godless pissed off Miro who doesn't have a hot, flexible wife sitting around anymore. Like, him and this like rageful downfall is not a story they get to tell. And Hobbs is another one who's kind of just been floating around. The whole mid-card title stuff was real weird with him. Hoping they kind of get him on track. I think this could be a more meaningful win for Hobbs and Miro can take the loss. But I think we're getting a few of these. I'm excited for Big Meaty Men slapping me, as Big E would say. And I think this is a little bit of a sleeper because there hasn't been a big build and most of it was just on that one collision. But I think this might be the thing that kind of blows our socks off because we haven't seen Hobbs go up against a guy like Miro. It's mostly like spine buster and you're out, right? So this should be really fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Slack, Kate kind of just talked me on the door on it. I'm excited to see these two. Now I'm thinking I hope they get some time to sort of flex out a little bit. Where are you on this one?
Yeah, I'm excited for it too. I think giving both guys an opponent that's worth the time has been rare. I do think Miro will win. I don't know what the end game is for this, if it's going to continue. I feel like in AEW, it seems like if you're just a singles guy, there's not a bunch of context around what you're doing week in, week out. Like Powerhouse was with QTV, then he shoved him away, but they're not actually totally broken up yet from what I know. So like, I feel like, are they going to do that? I think every time there's a pay-per-view, I predict, oh, there's this faction thing going on. Are they going to get involved in the match? And then they never do. They just have a match. So I have to stop doing that. But I do think Miro is probably going to win. I don't think he's back to lose, if that makes sense, outside of the kayfabe part of things. But I think it's going to be awesome. I think they're going to do something very physical for 10 to 12 minutes. And there's going to be a lot of spots where you're like, Jesus, that looks like it hurts. And I'm excited for it. I really am. I'm glad they're both getting an opponent worthy of what I think that they are, especially Hobbs, who has such a bright future. I mean, the guy, he looks like a badass. I don't know why he needs a bunch of like dorks hanging around him to help him be a badass. I hope he can just kind of like break away and be the guy we want to be. I'd even take Fur Coat Hobbs hanging out with Ricky Starks again. I thought that was cool, but I'm pumped for where this goes. And I think it's a really good singles match that should be good.
Maybe he's doing it like when you hang out with me, I just make you look tougher. Like the chasm is the difference.
Sure.
In that vein, Slack, what I would like to see here is to have a QT Marshall and some of the Aaron Solo and the crew try to help Powerhouse Hobbs, but throw him off and cost him the match. And he just wrecks house on those three. He's done with QTV and we move on. And so yeah. I agree with you. I don't think Miro's here to lose. And it's funny. Maybe we'll just use this to transfer into Punk because I don't have much else to say about this. But it was funny to me to think of this week, of all people CM Punk would threaten to get physical with in the locker room. Like both of you brought up the natural intimidation of Miro, and I know Punk is a trained MMA fighter, this sort of thing. But God, of all the people like march up to you, it's hard for me to imagine. It's like, hey, I'm pissed. You can get it too, Miro. Like he's one guy I might have been like, I'm fine, and kept walking. For sure.
So I'll just say there's been a couple of different accounts, and this is not to put Fightful over in any way or diss anybody else, but from what Sean had heard, the interpretation of it was that it was extremely tongue-in-cheek, and that he was like, you want to fight? Like, yeah, like I have a snowball's chance in hell, and Miro was like, let's take it to the ring. So I think that might have been some silliness about what happened earlier, but depends who you hear from and who you talk to. I think that game of telephone is something that can get very lost as far as like sarcasm might go, but man, Miro really does have a great sense of humor, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was some silliness behind that.
Yeah, I like to go with the Occam's razor for these things where you're hearing different accounts. It's like the idea of Miro, like as soon as I saw Sean's account, I think he was the one correcting the record. I don't really remember, and I'm not trying to get involved in the website stuff, but I remember there was the initial thing, they get physical, and then somebody was saying, it's like, my understanding is actually that it was much more based in humor. And like the second you see that, it's like, that actually makes way more sense because Miro is funny. And like I said, Punk would probably, I would imagine, pick targets aside from, of all people. Miro
I would say Punk is stupid, but I don't think he's stupid. You know what I mean?
No,
like
I would say, yeah, he's
I think
shrewd.
It's death wish.
Yeah, sensitive, but certainly I wouldn't say he's a dumb guy. But in bringing up the Punk man himself, the second City Saint, we have for Collision this Saturday, and please either of you correct me if I have this wrong. For Collision on Saturday, we have an announced graphic of Ricky Starks is going to challenge Ricky the Dragon Steamboat to a strap match at All Out the next day. And this is ostensibly what that segment is going to be. On the Wikipedia page, we all love it dearly, and every website that I could check, All Out match listing page, it does include Ricky Starks versus Ricky Steamboat in a strap match. I imagine they're all just running with the Collision announcement as well. I don't know that this has been confirmed in any sort of real way. It's a very hard question, but I'm going to make it very binary to begin with. I'll go to you first, Slack. Do you think that the match, Ricky Starks versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the bell rings to start that match at All Out?
No. And I think it's very important to read the phrasing that Tony Khan tweeted specifically. It was Ricky Starks will challenge Ricky Steamboat to a strap match on Collision. And I think there's a lot of heavy lifting being done by the word challenge. As soon as I read that, I thought, okay, they're setting something up. And on the call with the media, he wouldn't commit one way or the other CM Punk being on or off the card. Now I'm trying to steel myself against him being on the card because I don't like to be let down. So I'm saying he won't be there, and I know he won't be there. I want to be wrong more than anything because I think the card could use the juice. And I don't want to see another extended absence where they're just like, we're still investigating it, so everybody's off TV for as long as it takes. So it could be Punk. I've seen other suggestions. Maybe Sting comes out, protecting his buddy, old time guys hanging out, doing each other a solid. Sting versus Ricky Starks in a strap match would probably cook. I'd be cool with that. That would be fun. And again, I'm making that up. That is not like my prediction at all.
That's all we can do here. I'm not asking for anything more than based off of basically nothing. Your dude's best guess.
It just stinks of a setup. It reeks of a setup. I don't think anybody wants to see Ricky Steamboat in a strap match on a pay-per-view in 2023. And I don't think that's going to happen. What's going to happen? I don't know. It just feels like Punk's going to show up and everyone's gonna be like, oh my God, I thought you were suspended. Let's have this match we were supposed to have, but I'm not going to predict it. So something's going to happen, but I don't think the match itself will occur.
What do you think, Kate? Do you have any sort of sense of this? Do you think that match starts the Battle of the Rickies? I guess I'm realizing it is.
Lord, I hope not. I think this is a setup. And I think what actually is working to their advantage is you can keep the setup regardless of what ends up happening with CM Punk, right? Like you could just have somebody else come out in that spot. Who's more babyface in all wrestling than Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, right? Like it would make total sense. A lot of people would want to come in on his behalf. What's kind of interesting here is we know that Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler already have something to do that night. So I feel like the logical thing would be to have, one of his buddies that he's been running around with kind of fill in and take that spot if he can't make it. But they're already busy and they're busy with the Elite, which is very interesting. So I think there's a really fun opportunity there to maybe do we have Hangman already doing something, don't we?
Not announced.
No.
So he has Brian Keith, another big Andrew Cieslak guy.
Yes.
At Rampage on Friday. But you gotta figure he finds his way onto this card. This card could really use the Hangman, don't you think?
I do, and I think he might be the perfect guy because if Punk can't make it, you don't have to worry about Collision, locker room, whatever, right? So I feel like that's a really, really fun place for Hangman to come in, and I would love to see Hangman versus Starks, and I don't think you need much of a story to get there. I think having Ricky the Dragon Steamboat as the linchpin is perfectly fine as a way to get Hangman a singles match on this card. I think that could be a very, very fun way for him to come in, because I feel like Adam Page is kind of their perpetual babyface that's over in kind of a similar way. I think it could work out really well, and the promos Ricky would cut about Hangman's gear, I'm here for it. Let's go.
I love this idea. That is there is also like this fun meta contextual thing going on there where Hangman taking Punk's place in a 100%. Match is also like it's not actually addressing anything, but we're starving for crumbs. So there is like this small, I really like that as an answer. It hadn't crossed my mind. That'd be very fun. And as a match, like purely just as in a vacuum match, I think again, viewers of this program know I'm a big strap match fan in general. I think awesome. James Storm and EC3 of all people have a really good one in Impact. One of the only Impact matches I would recommend people go back and watch for the last little while. I mean, little while is me being old. But I like strap matches. And I think that certainly that pairing would have a long way to go with this. So no predictions here, but both of you say not that match. Slack says no Punk, and I guess you say in Hangman, no Punk. False to me. Will I be the optimist? I don't think you see CM Punk on Sunday at this card. I think it would be awesome. But I think it's hard to tell with Tony because he's so protective about answers in general and sort of a rough interviewee for that reason, that it can be teasing and like sustained interest, or it can be protecting yourself from like the Chicago crowd realizing that their chosen son, although I'm not even sure how true that is, that like, is Chicago 100% in the bag for Punk Slack? You would know, you live there, you're at every Chicago show.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, even the first Collision I was at the first Collision, and I was surprised how over his appearance was. I thought people might be mixed, and it wasn't mixed at all.
Okay.
But I also don't think we're at a spot where people are going to be livid if he's not there, because we're not in that position anymore where we haven't seen him for 7 years. Like I was at a Money in the Bank in like 2017 or something, where Roman Reigns was wrestling Jinder Mahal at Allstate Arena, and the crowd just chanted
classic.
CM Punk.
You were there?
Yeah. And the crowd just chanted CM Punk the whole time because it was so boring.
Versus the Tokyo Dome.
yeah. Where everyone's still buzzing about that one.
So I'm just saying, like, that era is over. He's been back long enough where it's not like a novelty, but having him on the card definitely would go a long way. People would be excited to see him for sure.
I think Kate was smart to bring up that the last All Out did have these big debuts taking us off air. And even if you didn't know Angle with it, just at the end of the pay-per-view was him walking out in Chicago and just like staring down the roster ostensibly, I'm still here. I think that would be a pretty meaningful go home visual. But like you pointed out, Slack, I do the same thing too, where like I predict sort of angle heavy AEW pay-per-views, and they really just aren't that. They really just are like the matches playing out, and that's not something to complain about. I'd way rather have that than cards that are like interference laden and all this sort of thing. But I fall for the exact same trap as you, where it's like it will probably be more basic, and then the drama will happen on the television is generally the safer guess. An 8-man tag match. Yeah, extremely true. 8-man tag match. It's FTR and the Young Bucks, a can they coexist team if there ever was one, taking on just one of my favorite acts in all of wrestling right now. It's Bullet Club Gold, the Bang Bang Gang. We've got Jay White, Juice Robinson, and the Guns. I feel like this match, everything I saw on our Twitter timeline yesterday is that this feels like a big TV match, and I really do just feel that way. Like I couldn't think of better words, or like my take is the exact same as everybody else's on this one. But I don't think that doesn't mean interesting things can't happen. I think you're going to see switched finishers between FTR and the Bucks. This mixed, Dax always misses the 450. What if he's that side of the Meltzer driver? Like there's these things that the interplay between those teams can be interesting to me. But Kate, I'll go to you here first. Could this card have used an FTR Bucks separate from each other match? Or do you think that the tag versus Bang Bang Gang is actually a pretty good anchor for this card? Anchor in the good way. I know some people think I mean bringing it down. I mean, foundational for this card.
So I feel like because we're not getting a world title match or a women's world title match, we should have gotten a tag match, like a proper tag title defense. And we keep throwing together these tournament things, and there's so much talent in the tag division that it's a little fatigued at that point of like, I'm loving the Adam Cole MJF stuff. If it took the tag team eliminator tournament to get us there, that's fine. But we do a lot of these tournaments. They're usually 1 to 2 week tournaments. I don't need it to be the G1, but something that actually feels like a tournament would be nice. And on top of that, there's just not a lot of title defenses here. Now, I think it's cool that it makes way for Orange Cassidy and Jon Moxley to headline the pay-per-view, because I think OC deserves that moment, and Jon Moxley comes in to save this company on a white horse every time they need him to. But at the same time, FTR, one of the most versatile teams out there, I'd give me them versus the Workhorsemen or whatever. Like, just even if it's predictable, I think something like that could be great. Now, Bullet Club Gold versus FTR is one of the best tag TV matches in history. I think there's a lot of fun stuff you could do with the Elite and FTR. Maybe they get along, and that's them trying to make kind of like an underhanded statement a little bit about where AEW's at. Maybe that's the move. I think this is going to be great in the ring, but in a card that doesn't feel super important, it would have been nice to have a proper tag title defense for sure.
Maybe even an opportunity to main event with tag titles is what I was thinking. There's certainly something, although as somebody with premature gray, I appreciate you trying to get JD Drake on the card. That is
I love that guy. Can you
how do you not?
Him too?
There's no, I of course, representation on television for me counts too. Guys with the gray hair who are schlubby. That is exactly within my wheelhouse. Slack, give me a winner here. Do you think the FTR and the Bucks, FTR and the Young Bucks, are they going to be able to keep it together to a win over the Bang Bang Gang here? Or do you think that the conventional faction who have worked together more, on the road talking to each other, are able to pick up the win here?
Well, you've got two very easy targets for a pin on the Bang Bang Gang side, I think. Do I steal your thunder from last night? What you
Please
said,
do.
I thought was a pretty good prediction. Full credit to Josh.
No,
I'm not the
only person.
I thought he made this point, and it was really, really smart. As far as like a potential finish, I think one of the things to be excited about in this match is like finisher stealing or finisher attempts that other guys typically do. You could see the Young Bucks hitting a shatter machine. You could see FTR doing a more bang for your buck or whatever. Or what Josh's suggestion was the finish could be a Meltzer driver with, I believe you said, Nick Jackson doing the pile driver spot, and then Cash Wheeler hitting his 450 springboard that he always misses in their head-to-head matches for the Meltzer driver and the pin. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that is better than I said it, actually. I think I said Dax does the 450, which he does not. So, you said it better than I did.
I think that's a great way to finish this match. I think you could do it on one of the guns and it works perfectly fine. I think you can sow a little discord as well and keep that rivalry going. They're obviously not buddies. And Jay and Juice don't need to win. They're so over. You know what I mean? I just feel like FTR and Young Bucks is as close to a super team as you could possibly get if you're talking about an 8-man tag. So I've got them winning. I think the style of winning is the way you described it perfectly, would be really fun. That's where I'm at with this one. It'll be fun. But again, it is a very much a like headlining Collision or Dynamite in the middle of a pay-per-view cycle match to me, but it is what it is.
And Kate, just your pick on that one. Do you think the Bang Bang Gang has it in them, or are you agreeing that it is going to be FTR Bucks?
I love your idea for a finish. I think that's great. And I do think it will be FTR Bucks. Also, even just from the feel good moment side of it, like not even the message being sent piece of it, but just be nice to have some pillars in the company winning here. I think you can continue to sow seeds of dissension, but there's ways to do that and still have people win the match. I'm get to review ROH later, but there's a really great example of that with Zack Sabre Jr. and Samoa Joe, where they had like all this tension in their match, but because they're savvy veterans and they had their titles involved, they were focused on winning the match. So they didn't let the other one get under each other's skin. There's really, really great storytelling to be had in something like that, especially with these two teams. Anything you can do, I can do better story is right there, but have them win the match, give the crowd something really to sink their teeth into, because there's not a lot of titles here. So you got to give them something.
I love that. Kate, Ring of Honor starts very soon, and I know you're on that beat, but I can't let you get out of here before talking about the aforementioned international title match between Orange Cassidy and Jon Moxley, because I think, like you said, I don't even know if I was about to say this has real chance to steal the show. That's actually really bad framing for it. Like, this feels like so often, like you put, here is Jon Moxley saying, oh, no, nothing else is here. Well, what's the hottest act on the show? We can main event with that. Put this on my back. And I think Kenny and Takeshita might main for the record, but I'm talking about like for a title, you're the highest title on the card. What do you anticipate from this match? Because our chat was very split last night on what I thought was sort of an assured Mox win going into it, but then a really palpable Orange Cassidy promo that felt like, I'm here. Who are you picking as a winner in this one? And where in the hierarchy of excitement is it for you on Sunday?
Man, I'm so excited. I feel like they did a great job giving Orange Cassidy the mic and letting him say a few words on Wednesday. I thought that was a really, really good call. I'm so torn here because I feel like if Mox wins, Jon Moxley with the title is a great idea for your program. And I feel like the international title is supposed to be something that defends in other places. And the way he works Japan, works the Indies, I think that could be a really good way to get back to the ambassadorial kind of feel that I think they were originally going for. At the same time, I feel like Orange Cassidy is a made man with this title reign, but for him to beat Jon Moxley, boy, oh boy, that would be like the cherry on top of all of it. I'm wondering if somebody comes into play here, if Eddie Kingston comes into play, if there's something from that side of things, because Kingston and Mox have had such like a special relationship, and I think we're continuing with Kingston and Claudio, but that animosity continuing with Claudio and Kingston with the I don't want to hate you, but you're aligned with this guy stuff that Eddie Kingston is so good at telling. I think there's some opportunities to do that and keep Mox protected in it. I think it's very cool. I'm going to assume this is going to main event. I think it's very cool that they're giving Orange Cassidy this because he deserves it with this title reign. He deserves it with the force that he's been in this title reign, and we don't hear any complaints about him or the best friends, right? So I think there's a really, really cool opportunity to let him come out the winner. And I think it's not a bad idea to let us have some feel good stuff right now. Like with how weird this card has been, how tumultuous backstage has been. You give us like that 4-man and you give us an Orange Cassidy title reign, like he deserves this spot and this victory. So that's where I'm gonna break OC, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Mox won. And I wouldn't be mad about it either. I think it says a lot about great wrestling that either outcome feels satisfactory and like a great call. So very, very cool that we're in the position where we can't really lose here.
Really well said. She's one of the best wrestling brains around. Kate Hensler, give her a follow at Miss Kate Fabe on Twitter. I'm sure all of her other socials are there. I see a link tree. Kate, really appreciate you carving out some time. There were some really great points made, and we'll be tuning into your ROH coverage later.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Come back soon, and we'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Kate.
Bye.
All right, Slack. So what dreck is left on this card for us to get into? Just you and I really thought Kate made some home run points there. I have my mind changed about a couple things there. Some really good points made.
It's that time-honored tradition of like, well, I'm going to say how I feel going in, and then after we talk about it, maybe I'll feel better about it. And I do.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Like, hey, these are some good matches in here. Yeah, very good. Let's move on, you and I, to the other title. Oh, actually, no, wait, you didn't get to talk about Mox and Orange, and neither did I. We probably got some things to say here. This is a tricky one to pick, I think. I think the rare, not tricky, actually, maybe very easy because you can't go wrong. I think you have great booking options, putting the international title on Mox or continuing. I mean, it really would just be at the win for Orange Cassidy, I guess, that he beat Mox would be the thing. Where are you on this? Who are you picking to win?
I think Orange Cassidy's my pick. We did have a good, compelling sort of discussion about Orange Cassidy losing and then heading into the eliminator, sort of like he gets a week or whatever off, and then all of a sudden he's totally fine and his injuries are healed up. I think that'd be pretty funny. But I don't know. I feel like now that I've heard Kate's kind of take on it, giving him like almost, it would feel like him winning the title for the first time if he beats Mox. It's like it is a defining win if he can beat Mox. So I guess for that reason, I'm going to pick him, but I also wouldn't be shocked. Moxley as a champion makes tons of sense. You can sort of pivot in a different direction. It's a genuinely intriguing match. I think the match itself is going to over deliver, even though I'm expecting it to be good anyway. It's like you said, it's a really nice position where there's no wrong answer. But I'm looking for that kind of feel good, Orange Cassidy winning again. So that's my pick.
Yeah, I hope this main events and is a angle heavy, awesome run in main event fest, because I hope we see the best friends trying to fight off Blackpool Combat Club from giving Mox the men advantage. Like Kate said, I suspect to see Eddie Kingston, who has a match earlier on the show that we'll talk about, make an appearance here as well. But ultimately, I do think that this title goes to Jon Moxley. I think that this is, I've been calling on the show lately for Mox to be more established as a singles talent, as a big time deal. I think his presence is always welcome on these shows. And he still enters with the BCC and all that, but I'm just really saying more singles matches. And I think as great and unpredictable and all time, people are going to remember this Orange Cassidy international title reign. You know how hard that is to do with a mid-card title? Like, how many mid-card title reigns from any federation could you just ramble off right now? Like, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I think most people would say Chris Jericho's IC title reign in New York, John Cena's Open Challenge US title reign. Daniel Bryan, right before he retired, was going to do that with the IC title over in New York.
Yeah.
So there's examples people would give, but it's a short list. I really think most mid-card title reigns do go forgotten. I think Orange Cassidy is going to be in that echelon of guys that I just mentioned, which is really remarkable.
Yeah.
However, awesome. I don't see, after you beat Mox, it's this giant win. It's not that clear to me what the next big thing is. I think the next big thing for him is a couple weeks off. And you planted an idea I can't get out of my head now of him like being super rested. They should shoot a vignette of Orange Cassidy, who's ostensibly the ultimate relaxer, like what his relaxing is. Like, I would love to see like a 2-part back or offset vignette of him just like on a couch, ice cream is on him, he's like barely moving, people are feeding him, maybe somebody's like pumping his chest to breathe for him. I just think there's a lot that you could do there to show like him resting, a guy who is the most relaxed.
Love it.
I'm really excited for this one, man.
Me too. I think you just changed me to Mox too. Like I that does make a ton of sense, but we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be good.
This got announced on the show last night. Samoa Joe versus Shane Taylor for the Ring of Honor TV title.
Yep. I don't know that we need to spend a ton of time on this one, Josh. I'm just going to throw that out there.
What would there be to say besides it's a fun matchup? I think it makes Miro and Powerhouse's task tougher.
Yeah, you talk about similar stuff being on the same card. This kind of falls in line with that. Like, I know Shane Taylor's had a lot of good work in ROH pre Tony's takeover. He's been on the TV show a lot. I admittedly haven't watched ROH TV in a couple months probably. But I know he won a tournament to get this shot. They just kind of like casually threw it in. Like, this whole thing happened. You probably weren't watching, but we're going to do it at All Out. And I don't know, like, is there a part of me that thinks maybe you get that title off Joe and he main rosters without it? Sure. But I don't think you can have Samoa Joe lose to Shane Taylor on a pay-per-view. You can't do that.
No.
So, is this like a 7-minute match? Probably. And that's fine, but I don't know why you needed to do it, quite honestly. So I'm a little baffled. It's disappointing. No offense to Shane Taylor whatsoever. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and kind of added to the negative feelings I was having starting after the Punk news broke, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it just didn't need to feel any more low stakes. And the Ring of Honor TV title and Shane Taylor, who, again, we're fans of on the channel, but is a unknown quantity to the Dynamite audience in terms of, and I don't even mean like, oh, no one knows who Okada is. I mean, like, Shane Taylor wasn't on the show. Like, he's just like, oh, this guy is fighting Samoa Joe. Okay, great. So yeah, I'm picking Joe. I don't have much else to say about it.
One thing I will add too is just that the Ring of Honor, like, title holders are mostly either AEW roster members or AEW roster caliber members. Like, Athena certainly hasn't been on TV, but she's better than 90% of the women on the card, if not all of the women on the roster. She might be the best one. So, like, I don't know how they get out of, like, all our champions are so good that no one in Ring of Honor's ever got a chance to actually beat them is the thing. And you can't do that forever. You just can't. So that's just confusing to me as well. I don't know.
I agree.
I just wanted to get that out there. Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. This next match, I'm going to say something I think surprising to people about, but I hate it and it pisses me off. And these are the competitors: Eddie Kingston, Katsuyori Shibata, Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, the tag team match between those four gentlemen on their respective teams. Josh, you love three of those four guys. You really love two of those four guys. You adore one of those four guys. I know. But I need Tony Khan to get better at pivoting, because this card needed ROH world title defense, Claudio versus Eddie Kingston, so badly. Yeah. And I know he feels the need to save it for the next Ring of Honor pay-per-view. You got to worry about tomorrow, and today. Because this card, if the top of it is John Mox, Orange Cassidy, Kingston, Claudio, Chris Statlander against somebody more compelling than Ruby Soho, you've got three title matches that I'm in on, and you could have sold me on this pay-per-view. And then Kenny and Takeshita on there as like, we could have been really cooking with gas here, because Eddie Claudio is a hot feud that is already built. It is exactly the sort of thing that would help the situation. So, okay, you don't want to do it. Okay. You got to put both those guys on the card, make it this close. You know, they're there, they're scheduled, they're free, dude. You got to pivot, brother. It's right there. Dude, Wheeler versus Shibata. I guess you've done that. But you can find something for Shibata if you want that star power on the card that doesn't involve this. This needed to be Eddie Kingston versus Claudio Castagnoli. It just did. You needed the pivot. I feel like any reasonable promoter, especially if they're on the card, we know there's no reason they couldn't be there. Like, I just don't know how you don't make that pivot. I don't get it.
This is very much one of this is a television match on a pay-per-view that the stakes aren't huge. If Eddie loses a tag team match or wins what does that do? The match between him and Claudio is going to happen anyway. That's destined. So what is the stakes for this match? It's one of those matches that's going to have a winner and a loser, and nobody's going to think about it ever again. maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they introduced some element to it.
You're not
but
wrong.
I don't think I'm wrong. And there's too many of those on this card. Like All In going into it, where we would go through each match and be like, I genuinely am not sure who's winning this, but there are way too many matches on this card where I know who's winning.
Yeah, I'm sure who's winning.
I don't care who's winning, which is even worse.
Yeah, those are both really bad, but the latter is worse. I agree.
Yeah. I think I'm yelling. I apologize.
No, hey, I love your words. I'm picking Eddie to win. I don't know if he pins Claudio or Wheeler. I would pin Claudio here in a tag match. I think that's the best way to further their feud.
Yeah.
But I can understand just having him. I mean, he pinned Wheeler on Wednesday, so I don't know.
Pinned Wheeler. Claudio got pinned by Orange Cassidy at All In. Part of me wonders if Eddie gets pinned. Maybe by Claudio, and that just pisses him off even more. If I had to pick gun to head, that's my choice. But again, like Eddie and Claudio is going to happen regardless at some point. So it doesn't really matter, I guess is the best way to put it.
Here's a match I'm not sure about the result of.
Yeah.
And care about. In Darby Allin versus, I mean, it says Luchasaurus with Christian, but let's be honest, versus Christian for Christian's TNT title. No, I mean, Luchasaurus is I'm a bigger fan of Luchasaurus in ring, I think, than most people. I think most people don't think of him as a great pro wrestling striker, and I think of him as a great pro wrestling striker. I like his high kicks, I like his uppercuts, I like his punches. I like when Luchasaurus wrestles. And who on earth doesn't want to see Darby Allin versus a tall guy? I think this is going to be good.
Very good. Darby Allin can make chicken salad out of chicken shit 7 days a week, right? I think this isn't chicken shit by any means. But
he could if he had to.
He could. This is a cool story. I love the Pac Northwest thing that they keep doing with those guys, with Swerve and AR Fox and Nick Wayne and whoever else is involved in that Northwestern scene. I think this is Darby's claim of like the TNT title hasn't been relevant since I had it, which is true, but I really like Christian having it as well. And I don't know that I want that to be over because it's awesome. He's on TV every week. He's shit talking everybody. It's phenomenal. He had the shots fired at Nick Wayne for the first time. And I don't want that to be over. Let's keep going with that. Talk about other people's dads. Like that shit is the best. And so, yeah, Darby pinned Christian, I believe, on Collision. Wasn't that the outcome? That match was really good. I'm picking Luchasaurus.
I too, for a lot of the reasons you're saying, I just don't think this Christian Luchasaurus TNT title reign is done. I actually sort of question the booking here a little bit because Darby does feel like somebody who, if challenging for the TNT title, could definitely win it, but maybe that's just valuable to Luchasaurus. Again, Luchasaurus may be limited as a singles wrestlers in some ways. Darby Allin's a good person to put against those people to still carry them to something really good by sacrificing his own body. And I mean, Darby is really so much more than that. I almost feel bad saying that. He is so good at so much, but he does that so far and above his peers that it's hard to not just go there. But I do think he's picking up the L here.
Yeah.
Now, Slack, we have one more match to discuss, but I want to give a warning to our viewers. Fair warning. This match is MJF and Cole versus the winner of tonight's, this is Friday morning, tonight's Rampage Tag Battle Royale. So everybody knew this was set up on Dynamite, that the winners of this Rampage Battle Royale Tag Edition are going to challenge MJF and Cole on Sunday for the Ring of Honor Tag Team belts. I'm about to tell you, because the Rampage spoilers came out, who that pairing is, and then Slack and I are going to break it down. So this is your final warning. If you do not want to know who MJF and Cole are facing, you don't want to know who wins that Battle Royale, get out of here. Come on back. Though.
Here.
You know, you hit pause. You know how tabs work, Slack. You just pause it in one tab, you come back later.
Come back Friday night. But as Juice Robinson says, I'll tell you where to go and how to get there.
What a great line that is. John Silver and Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order are your Ring of Honor title challengers.
Yeah.
Probably not what I would have done on this card. I feel like this card probably could have used some better opponents for your most overact in the company. Lots of people who view this channel like John Silver a bunch of those, so they'll be happy about this. I don't know. Something's just off. with this card and the booking. Like there are some highlights, and Kate did a good job of getting me onto those. And again, Mox and Orange, but some of this stuff has me going, duh.
Yeah.
And this is one of those.
It's a little confusing. I'm not as hard on this pairing as others are either. I don't hate Dark Order. They do a nice hot tag that everybody seems to enjoy. You know, I guess I'm just confused at their direction. If you've watched ROH over the last couple months and you saw the pay-per-view, is that they lost Stu Grayson. Those two and Uno are like, well, we're back to business now. We're not Adam Page's little jokey buddies anymore. We're here to kick butt and be violent. And their ROH match was awesome. It was very good. So they're serious now. Their promos denote a seriousness. John Silver's not making all the loud, stupid jokes. Alex Reynolds is like, I'm here to hurt people. And they're going into a match that they're going to lose in a very quick amount of time. And they're also supposed to be the heels, I guess. I don't understand what they're going for in any way, shape, or form. To me, it feels like you're getting Cole and MJF, who are your hottest act, on this card in any way you can, just so they can be there. They're not going to wrestle a hard match. They're not going to take a ton of bumps. They'll do a bunch of jokey stuff. Maybe they'll hit a double clothesline, maybe even a kangaroo kick. Great. That's not really for me. I'll be honest. Like, that's not something that I'm wanting to see. So it felt like they won the Ring of Honor titles so that MJF didn't have to do back-to-back title defenses at pay-per-views. That's literally what it was. And I don't like it. That's the bottom line. I just don't.
It'll be fun for you in attendance to have the entrance on the card, I suspect. Like the Brochacho Cole MJF remix theme is cool. But I don't know how you look at this card. And I know it has to be somebody from Ring of Honor, but wasn't this set up to be the Kingdom? Like, I don't know.
That's the other thing. What? Yeah, that felt cut and dry. So maybe there's a Kingdom run in, but like, couldn't they have just won the Battle Royal? Or are you saving that for some future thing that I don't know what that could be? Like, what are we doing with that for? Because if you're saving this Kingdom challenging for the Ring of Honor titles against MJF and Adam Cole, MJF is your world champion. So if either he's doing double duty, which maybe that's his downfall, maybe that's why he turns on Cole or whatever. Like, I don't understand, and maybe I will in time. But for now, your main title is tied up in a story about like I said, I'm trying to make it make sense. I'm pretty forgiving, but I don't quite get it at all, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I would have just gone with more important, vital people here.
The time is now. We keep saying it, right?
Even if you want to do something, it's a guaranteed loss anyway. Do the best friends. Do something that like has some sort of gravity. I don't know. This just feels like out of nowhere. Yeah, I know it's for the Ring of Honor titles and it's using Ring of Honor talent.
Yeah,
I don't have a complaint in that. I'm just saying this card needed bigger stakes than it ended up with.
Correct. I think that's the huge problem with the card, and we're gonna find out what happens on Saturday with the real world title, if it's involved or not, if Punk's involved or not. Card needs it, and if they're busy doing an HR investigation, like this is, John's solar panel company in fucking the middle of nowhere, then that's what you want to do. Go ahead. Like, what are we going to do at this point? I don't know.
It is a real shame. It is a real shame. And I think that they have a chance to take all this bad energy and get it right on Sunday. They need to batten down the hatches in every way. And to say, we're working together. And I know that this, from everything we hear, this is impossible, but you just need to do the impossible at this point. You can't have this live mine everywhere. There's no more dyed-in-the-wool Punk fan than me. You won't find them. Nope. But you need to have the discussion. I don't know if you need to say, hey guys, actually, between me and you, for a top guy that outdraws everybody on this roster by such a degree, sure, he's an asshole, but he's a smaller degree asshole than everybody else with that scope relative to, you don't want to be in other eras around those top guys. The top star in the company putting a front headlock on a mid-carder does not need to put pay-per-views in jeopardy. It just doesn't. Like, in other federations, it didn't. And it needs to, and that isn't an excuse to say, well, you can go around headlocking mid-carders then, because that's how some people choose to read the way I make these points. I'm saying that other feds managed to survive through this without having it rock the boat in such dramatic ways. Not that the action is right, because then you start doing the backwards math on, well, he did the glass spot and hey, don't cry on pay-per-view. I don't care at all. I don't care who started it. I need to turn that into on television resolution.
You
and
have
I know
to sell
it sounds
tickets.
Impossible. I also don't care. It's what I need to happen here.
It's not our job. You have to sell tickets. You have to sell pay-per-view buys. You're not going to do that by saying there's a pending investigation about some bullshit that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And frankly, Jack Perry should be the only one potentially suspended if you're suspending anybody, because he doesn't draw any money. Period. Nobody's buying a card because Jack Perry's on it. Sorry.
But now they would against CM Punk.
If you make that match, absolutely.
It can headline any pay-per-view. Like,
they're
this
clearly
is how
not willing
the
to do it.
This is done. Yeah, right now Jack Perry couldn't sell a pay-per-view, and yet there's one matchup for him that could not only sell a pay-per-view, it could headline one. Brothers, shake the hands, protect each other out there. Don't in moments. Go watch Sean and Brett. Go watch Necro and Joe. Go watch how they did this. Certain mastery to this. Bums me out.
I don't understand. Like, part of me wonders if nobody had reported that this happened, would we even know about it, and would there be suspensions? Probably not. But like, to have some pre-show dipshit derail an entire pay-per-view is it's self-inflicted gunshot wounds. It's like, why would you do this to yourself? Like, it's insane. And it really, again, this is the crux of why I'm feeling a little bummed out, because like Josh, you've said it a few times, the inability to pivot here is a little disheartening, to put it mildly. Like, there's plenty of stuff you can do. If you're Jack Perry right now, and I really don't know why I care, but if you're Jack Perry right now, what's going through your head like today? Are you like, wow, I got my pound of flesh, like, pay-per-view be damned? Or are you like, I'm the biggest fuck up ever and I should be ashamed of myself? Because, like, what a dumb, stupid thing for somebody who's not that big of a deal right now to do. It's crazy that even happened.
Ego
is
clash
crazy.
between CM Punk, who has a giant ego and is oversensitive, but it's like that space colliding with Jungle Boy is just so hard to like imagine.
It makes no sense. Yeah,
like, where is
the
your
elite makes sense. Those guys are a big deal. They started this company. But Jack Perry, who couldn't speak his way out of a paper bag, I don't know, man.
I think that is where I am seeing the bleeding of the middle ground of the fan base. Like, some of the, let's say, like the dyed-in-the-wool Punk people like me and the dyed-in-the-wool elite people. I actually see some of the elite people softening on Punk, where it's like, okay, Jack Perry, now we're doing this again for Jack Perry. And I think you see people like me being like, I am tired of the magnet towards him. Now, am I going to say I think there's an agenda against him there? Like, not really. But I think I've had relationships like this, not with coworkers really, but with people I don't like, where once you just have a magnifying glass out and you're looking for any perceived lack of respect from the other party, you're always going to find it. And I do think Punk has too much of that going right now. But in the same breath, from the boss angle, like, Tony, you gotta go get a hold of these reins, like, and you gotta take that big star and say, hey man, you're the big star. We're gonna pamper you a little bit. Hey, Jungle Jack, we're not. Like, you can't be stepping to our big prize pony right now because I'm trying to grow a company. Like, I understand that I have to cart him around like he's made of glass, but guess what? The translation is worth it, and I can see where it's worth it. I'm having a hard time with that equation with you, and so I need you guys to make good. Shoot CM Punk a text that says, hey man, I'm frustrated, but Harley Race would want us to do business. Punk would be the biggest mark in the world for that right now. He would be like, you know about Harley? Be like, Punk, let's finish with a suplex. Like, you're off to the races. You're headlining a pay-per-view on Sunday. You're 2 texts away, man. Like, I know. And it's just disheartening as the consumer.
Yeah. It is, and it's been proven now multiple times that they're just not going to do things that way, and it's a shame. And it's a shame that we know about this stuff. I don't care. I don't want to know about every discussion that doesn't go swimmingly behind the scenes. It's not interesting to me.
Well, it's just interesting to me where in the reporting it becomes a full-bodied story, I think, is really how I've narrowed it in over the past couple weeks. Where it's like we talked off the top, but like the Miro story, and it's like, okay, so this thing happened, But because of the immediacy of it all coming out, we had something that to say we had the story is just entirely untrue. Like, we had heard a series of events that happened. It's like, okay, so are we willing to publish that then? Like, at what point does rumor actually hit the timeline? And that is becoming a grayer and grayer world. And I understand why any pro wrestling, and this happens in MMA too, website would track the stuff minute to minute, moment to moment, because everyone else is already doing it. And so it's not like you are actually protecting anything by not reporting it. It's ubiquitous. You're just removing yourself out of the race. It would just evolve like a culture shift that is never going to happen. The same as everywhere else in media. It is a speed game, a quick to press game. You don't have the benefit of we don't print till 6 a.m. tomorrow.
Nope.
So I can't hold these websites to the standard, but in the same breath, do I think that it is? Again, I just don't think if this would have happened, it's the... I don't think every party involved, Elite, Punk, Jungle Boy, Brody King, would have their feet dug in as much without the public knowledge of it. It becomes a personal issue instead of like this ego stand where I've had this where I'm trapped with a person where it's like, I can't cede ground to them at this point. It's not about the thing. I can't cede ground because I'm in a stuck ego battle. Yeah. And I've had this exchange with people or relationship dynamic with people, and you can't make anything work. So I hope and pray they get it settled, because, man, there was nobody more thankful for AEW than me at the start of it. There just wasn't. I went from doing a weekly WWE podcast to just throwing in the towel and watching any of their product and just covering GCW and New Japan and Old All Japan behind a paywall. And the advent of AEW, complaints that I have, I think people would know that Double Dudes has been an incredibly positive show. I think if you took the 1-7 average of the course of years that Zoobs and I gave, it'd be in the high 5s, low 6s. Like, really positive. And I'm a hard person to turn into not giving you the benefit of the doubt. And you've managed to get me there. And I want to be one back. So let's make it happen this week at AEW Presents All Out 2023. If you see the Slack man there, you can't miss him. He's a mountain of a man. Say hello to him. Shout Wrestling Brain at him. And we, of course, will have a post show right here, twitch.tv/Wrestling Brain. The moment it ends, we hope to see you all there. Thanks again to Kate from Fightful for joining by. I thought some really good insight and sunshine along the way, like she said. So making me feel better about it. I suppose I drug us right back into the mud. Whatever. I brought us right back to Hades, but say la vie. Big thank you to everybody watching this, to her, to you, Andrew C. Slack, for being so great. How great is Slack on the channel, everybody? I mean, what you talk about, real sports Slack. What do you call like a signing that goes well?
What do you call it? I call it a Marion Hossa, a John Lester. That's a local reference for the sports people out there.
He's a Marion Lester or whatever the hell he just said. That's our Andrew C. Slack.
Let's go.
We're trying to grow YouTube. I don't know how much we're going to do on here, but if you like these longer format previews that we've been doing, give a like, give a subscribe. They're very shareable. So if you want to, link, I understand that the Twitch paywall is a barrier for some people to share the show. So if you don't mind, if you enjoyed this discussion, you want to see more of it, give it a share, text it to a wrestling friend. Wrestling fans know wrestling fans. Let's hope the show goes well. Love and energy.